Greetings for the day. Welcome to another session of Computer Networks. My name is Mohammed Ali. In today's session, we are going to study about our third unit, and we are going to start about our third unit, that is socket programming or network programming. But before going into our third unit, let me rewind or let me revise the thing that we have studied in the previous session. In the previous session, we studied about the transmission control protocol, we studied about the user datagram protocol, and we also studied the differences and similarities between the TCP and UDP type of protocols. But in today's session, we are going to study about a new concept called as network programming. Now, don't get confused with the word called as programming. Programming always doesn't mean that you'll be writing some code. Programming also means making that particular thing work with some journal instructions. Program doesn't need only mean like it will be written in some particular notepad, wordpad or something like this. Nothing to be worried. It is something like to make some communication with reference to the programming elements. Okay, as also I have told you in the previous session, programming doesn't mean that you will be everything is all about coding. No, programming is a part of whole of the product. Like it shapes and about 2 to 4% of the whole project part. Now, in unit 3rd, what we are going to study? We are going to study about network programming, in which we are going to see what actually is a socket, what is a socket interface, what is socket addresses, what are the elements or elementary sockets, what are the advanced sockets, what are the different options available in socket, and what we call as RPC, or it is also known as remote procedure calls, and how it can be achieved, and what are the issues with reference to RPCs, and what are the transparency things, like how the data or the information is being transferred and how it is being received. What are the issues related to with reference to RPC? That's the only thing we are going to see in this particular session. Now, in this unit, or sorry, not the session, in this unit actually, in this session we are going to learn about the basic element with reference to sockets, what actually is network programming, and why we are studying this subject, what is the actual purpose of studying this subject. From the first session, we are studying that computer networks. In the first unit, we studied about how computer network come into like how computer network is being introduced, how we are going to use the computer networks, what are the methods and what are the means by which we will be using computer networks, and also what are the different methodologies by which we will be implementing the computer networks. In second unit, we studied about the different types of protocols, we studied about different types of transmission medium, we also studied about the different types of protocols, gateway protocols, transmission protocols, accessing protocols, and how one system is going to connect with another. In unit 3 or in third unit or in third chapter, we are going to learn about how these two things are being communicated. How these two things, in a sense, how I am saying hello to you and you are only able to receive it. Among the different type of people, I said hello Adnan, hello XYZ, hello Mr. Y, hello Mr. S. In a sense, I am calling that person particularly with his name, with his address, with his identity, or with his unique identification number or unique ID. That's only the reason I am able to communicate with him. Now, how is this possible? This is all possible with reference to sockets. This is all possible due to sockets. Before actually moving or jumping into the topic, let me know what actually a socket is. What actually a socket is. Let us consider an example. You are holding a laptop, or you are holding a mobile phone, you are holding a PC or a tablet. That is an individual entity. To make that individual entity work, we need some components. To make that particular device an active device, we need some component, we need all of the required things to start that component. For instance, you have a mobile phone, iPhone 7, iPhone whatever it is, a Samsung or different types of things. Unless and until that mobile battery is being charged, you will not be able to use all of its application, neither the hardware nor the software. It means you need to put some things. So what you will be doing, you will be taking some of the precautions, and also you will be taking some of the measures so that my battery is working properly. So what you will do, if at all something is happening with reference to connection oriented type of thing, when you are speaking about a PC, you will be connecting that laptop or that computer to a power socket. You will be connecting that to a power socket so that the computer can start. As soon as the computer has been started, the PC has been started, you will be attaching a network socket to it so that you can be connected to a network, whether that network be a local network, whether that network be an inter-network, whether that network be an intra-network, whether that network be an internet. It can be anything. So you will be connecting that particular system with a port through a socket. It means you will be having some ports and sockets so that the communication can happen between two ends and two nodes. That's the thing that we are going to study in the first part called as socket or network programming. In the RPC type of things, we will be seeing how one system calls another system. In this, we will be seeing how one network will call another network and how calls are being made. And how communication happens. In a sense, like how we both are communicating. We both are communicating with a medium called as online, with the platform as YouTube. I am uploading this video or I am uploading this clip on YouTube, and you are able to see that clip and video on that particular time. It means it is acting as a remote type of speaking or remote type of taking sessions. In the same way, in remote procedure calls, we will be calling our network remotely without any connection or with some interconnections. We will be calling some peer network, we will be calling some other network through remote calls. That is the thing that we are going to study in the second part called as remote procedure calls. Now, jumping in directly into our today's session topic, what is network programming? What actually is network programming? So what the definition says, network programming involves writing computer programs that enables process to communicate with each other across a computer network. It means network programming means there will be some instructions, programs, algorithms, or some of the instructions to be get communicated with one another. So writing some computer programs, in the sense it can be an algorithm, it can be something like a set of instructions, so that process can enable the communication between two networks or two systems or two devices or two different networks. So with the help of network programming, we will be able to communicate with one and another networks. For the second part, it says network programming helps user to communicate with one another and to share information across any given network. That is, the network can be connection oriented or connectionless. It means with the help of this network programming, you will be able to access that particular information, or you will be able to process that particular information or you will be able to retrieve or submit your information on one to another network. It means, like for an instance, if I tell you something, when you write your username and password to any of your website for login, you are giving two separate instructions, two separate codes which will be authenticated with the network, which will be authenticated at the network, and it will give you a confirmation message replying either with the login page, either with the home page or with the failure message to re-login with correct credentials. That is what you do with the help of network programming. And also, network programming is something like, it acts like sending and receiving of information. It acts like sending some information and you are getting some reply, or it might be something like you are directly sending some information as broadcast messages, so that the current system and the system who has to receive the information will receive that information from you. That is what we call as network programming. Now, coming towards what is socket, what actually a socket is. A socket is one endpoint of two-way communication link between two programs running on the network. First and second, like from the first class, I am telling you something as node. What actually is a node? Node is something like, it acts like a socket. Node acts like a socket, like it is a type of a socket wherein the transmission happens from two ways, either in receiving or in sending. So what it says, a socket is one endpoint of a two-way communication link between two programs running on a network. Now further it says, the socket mechanism provides a mean of inter-process communication by establishing name contact point between which the communication takes place. Now what do you mean by this inter-process communication? If at all we have studied in your operating system, like if at all we have studied the subject called as operating system, or if at all we have not studied, if at all we are going to study in further semesters, you will be coming across a term called as inter-process communication. Now what do you mean by this inter-process communication? Inter-process communication in the sense, in any of the operating system or in any of the system, the process or the information processing is parallel. Information processing is parallel in the sense, if at all on one operating system you are downloading a music, uploading a document, copying a file, deleting a file. These are the 4 operations or 5 operations you are doing on one personal computer or on a laptop or any other device. Now what internally happens is, all of this process looks like are executing parallelly, looks like it is working parallelly, but in actual terms, computer or your processor or your CPU executes only one process at a time. One process at a time. It processes so fast that it looks like it is processing multiple things at one instance. It looks like it is processing multiple things at one instant. So that is what we call as inter-process communication. In the sense, it will execute first part of the first instruction, second first part, third first part, fourth first part. It has been executed so fast that everything moves parallelly. So what it says, the socket mechanism provides a mean of inter-process communication by establishing named contact point between which communication takes place. For an instance, while taking a class, if I particularly say a particular name, roll number so and so or Mr. so and so, it means during a broadcast message, what I am speaking now, it is a broadcast of a message, like one person is speaking and many persons are listening. In that, I am particularly calling one particular person so that I can address him. I can address him or I can communicate with him. Or within the whole of the class, if at all if I am towards the CR, I am communicating with reference to CR, the CR will respond me on behalf of the class. Or I am, in other terms I can say, I am communicating with one of the node responsible in that particular network. Okay, or I can say I am communicating in one particular node or with one particular named contact point between which the communication will take place. Or else I can say, after completion of the class, I say I want to speak to the class representative, please stay within the class, or please stay back after the class, whoever is the class representative. Or else if I want to say in other terms, the persons who got less marks than 50%, please stay after the session. It means I am communicating with some named contact points. I am communicating with some named contact points so that the communication can happen between us only. The communication can happen between us only. This is possible with the help of socket. This is possible with the help of socket. This is what you call as socket. Now moving forward, why sockets? Like what is the use? Like why are we using socket? Sockets are generally employed in client-server application. Now what do you mean by this client-server application? Client-server application means there will be one server who will be responding and there will be some client who will be requesting for some particular thing. Or if at all if you want to understand this in a better way, let us consider an example of a department in which HOD is the server and all of the department people are working as client. Whether it might be faculty, whether it might be a student. Whatever the information that you want to get, you will be directly requesting the head of the department to process that information to you. For the faculty purpose, that information will be different. For the student purpose, the information will be different. And within the student also, depend upon the year in which they are, the information will be changing. If at all a first year student asks the head of the department that whether I will be helped in the internal marks, what is the answer that the head of the department will give? The head of the department answer will be no, we will not be helping anyone. If the same question is being asked by a final year student, the answer or the response with the reference head of the department will be, we will be helping you in your internal marks so that you score more, or we will be helping you in the internal marks so that you score more in your internal examination by giving you some important questions, by letting you know which are the frequent questions that has been asked in the previous years, or whether it might be giving some extra notes or extra other things so that it will be helping you to score more marks. It means with the reference to the socket also, it is working as a client server type of an application in which if at all someone is requesting you for the information, that particular information is being processed to you with the reference to that particular client. Understood? Another example I will give you to make you understand what client server application is. In a bank, there will be a manager, there will be some of the customers. If at all customer is logging, the information process will be different. If at all the manager is getting logged in, the information process to him will be different. So what the socket generally does, socket will provide the information with reference to the client server application in which the client requests something for the server and the server responds to that particular request. Okay. Now what the further it says, the server creates a socket attached to a network port address, then waits for the client to contact it. Head of the department will always be there in his office saying that if at all if you have any of the requests, please come down to my cabin. Please come down to my cabin. That is what the thing it's saying over here. The server creates a socket attached to a network port addresses, then waits for the client to contact it. The client creates a socket and then attempts to connect to the server socket. You went to the head of the department cabin and you knocked it. It means you are creating a socket to communicate with reference to the head of the department. Now, when the connection is established, transfer of data takes place. As soon as the head of the department says you can come in, then the communication starts. What is the matter over here? Head of the department has sat in his cabin and is saying, whoever wants to know something or whoever wants to ask something, say something or report something, please come down to my cabin. I am open from this point to this point, or I am in the cabin from this time to this time. So the socket is open. Now what you need to do, if at all if you have anything to say, you need to see that slot and you need to connect to that slot. Then only the communication will happen with the help of the socket. This mechanism is called as socket. So this is why sockets are being used. Now, how sockets can be used? We have seen why sockets is being used. Here we will see how sockets can be used. Now, like what it says, the internet protocol breaks all communication into packets. In the previous class also I told you what is packet. Packet means the data is been divided into some individual small units called as packets. The information that is been processed on network is referred to as packets. The information that is been passed on the network is been referred as packets. So what it says, the internet protocol breaks all communications into packets, finite size chunks of data which are separately and individually routed from source to destination. IP allows router, bridges, etc. to drop that packets. Now this is how sockets are being used to communicate with reference to the different means or to communicate on the network via socket. Now, if you observe, like I have said 5-6 different names or 5-7 or 3-5 different headings, but the explanation is same. It means explanation is not same, but it is differing with reference to different situations. Like the same person is writing the exam for mathematics, same person is writing the exam for electrical subject, electronic subject, computer subject, but his performance in one subject is good, in another subject is bad. But in overall, if you see, he is writing examination. In the same way, sockets is a thing which is doing different things at different level. That's what the thing a socket is all about. I hope you are understanding something with reference to what I am speaking. Where the sockets is used, where actually the socket is used. A socket is used in a client-server application framework. A server is a process that performs some function on request from client. Most of the application level protocol like file transfer protocol, simple mail transfer protocol or POP3 makes use of sockets to establish connection between client and server and then exchanging data. With the help of these different protocols, the sockets are used to process information, to gather information, or to send information or to receive information on the network. I repeat, networking is all about receiving, sending, processing and maintaining of the information and packets. Now, what is socket programming? Now, before going to socket programming, let me understand the network programming concept. Network programming in the sense communicating or considering both of the things to make a network for communication. Whereas socket programming applies the same. As we have studied with reference to socket, the processing of socket or the information gathering and processing some particular programming on that socket is called as socket programming. Okay, I hope you understood something for what we have spoken today. We will continue our session with reference to socket programming in the next session. I hope you understood something from today's session. If at all if you have any doubt with reference to today's session, please ping me on my email address rahmat_ali2u@yahoo.com. If at all if you have any doubt, please let me know. I'll help you with the best of the things I can. I hope all the best for the day for you, and I expect you to study best for your internals. And also if you want anything with reference to internals, please let me know. I'll try to help you, but I'll make you very clear that no important notes or no important questions will be given for internals. You need to study all of the subject. I'll help you in understanding the concept, but I personally doesn't give any of the important questions. If at all if you want to get some of the important questions, please see the previous question papers. I'll give you this hint. Please see the previous year question paper. It will help you to know which question is important and which question is not, which topic is important and which has got the maximum weightage. That's all from now. Thank you for listening and thank you for joining this session. Hope to see you in the next session. Thank you for joining.